What's the stupidest way you've injured yourself? Trying to clean the facial hair out of my razor. I sliced one of my fingertips slightly open. Less than a second later and irritated with blood dripping onto the sink. I quickly attempted to clean the rest of the razor exactly the same way with my next finger, resulting in another slight slicing. In my defense, it was very early in the morning and I wasn't yet a coffee drinker at that point in my life. I've come to realize that the easiest way to remove hair from a razor is to press the razor on your arm or leg and glide it in the opposite direction. The hair grips to your skin and comes right out. A lot easier than running it underwater and or tapping it out. Might not work the best with little hairs though. Put a knife into a slingshot to shoot my buddy in the ass. Believe it or not, there was no ill will involved. The idea popped into my head and my 14-year-old brain thought, holy shit. That sounds hilarious. Apostrophe. Fortunately, the knife slipped and completely opened up the space between my thumb and forefinger. Internal stitches, external stitches and a thing that held my hand in place for a while. I felt dumb. It hurt badly. But at the end of the day I'm so happy I hurt myself instead of doing some serious damage to someone else because I wasn't thinking things through. The first few weeks of boot camp I was still learning to shave properly. I turned 18 while I was there and only had a bit of chin fluff. My face wasn't used to daily shaving and I started getting this really itchy dry crusty skin around my chin. We'd also been issued ultra fine grain sandpaper for polishing the brass parts of our ceremonial uniforms. I had the bright idea to smooth my face out with it one morning, which actually worked really well. Took the dry itchy skin right off. And a few layers underneath, which didn't hurt at the time but stung like hell about 30 minutes later during a dress inspection, and was apparently really visible because the parts I'd polished were swollen, red, and slightly bleeding. The drill staff were, in a way, impressed since no one else had sandpapered their own face before. So I guess I hold some sort of record in that regard. I put my finger in a fan to realize if the fan was spinning fast enough. I cut my thumb wondering if a knife was sharp. It was. Once, I banged my arm on a table. It was so deep I had to go to the ER and get stitches. Only made that mistake once. I now have a permanent scar because table. Did the same while doing the dishes once. I was cleaning a kitchen knife, which were very dull because I lived in a student house, but I managed to overshoot the brush during my vigorous scrubbing, slamming the knife into my knuckle. Decided to go to the hospital because I could see my metal carpal bone when I was playing with the loose skin flap. The nurse was very impressed. I have a scar on my knuckle from packing a shelf of wine in a supermarket, not knowing there was a broken bottle at the back of the shelf. Being a round bottle, it rolled as the pressure from me pushing another bottle into it and the broken end went into my knuckle, almost severing the tendon, but it didn't bleed. It was just grey. The best part was going to the first aider. Sandra, have you got a plaster? Why? Show Sandra my hand as the blood started running out of the wound and onto the freshly cleaned floor. Honey, you don't need a plaster. You need to go to the hospital, and the managers told me I'd get marked as having not turned up for work if I didn't come back after the hospital. This happened less than 15 minutes into my shift. I was cutting a wire tie off a couch a month ago and stabbed myself in the wrist with a steak knife. Got a tetanus shot after that one. Okay, edit, since this apparently is getting attention. I got the TDAP shot from my local pharmacy and it didn't hurt that much. It was a $400 couch from Wayfair for my grandmother. And I was not cutting toward myself, I was cutting straight forward, but the force I used sent my right hand towards my left one in a weird, hard to describe with just text way. It was a sucky day. Once me and my boyfriend were play fighting on my bed. He turned over and let rip the loudest fart right on me, causing me to jump back in such shock that I elbowed the corner of my desk with such force I had to go to the accident and emergency for an x-ray. I'm laughing about it now, but it honestly hurt like a fucker. I thought I'd shattered every bone in my arm. I never told anyone that's how the injury happened either. I just told everyone something made me jump. I dislocated my kneecap on a dance floor. Went up for a rebound. No one around me. Came down and touched. Sprained my ankle. Long story short, I jumped. Same thing happened to me except I was trying to catch a frisbee. I've reduced range of motion in that ankle and I can't do a proper squat because of it. I was baked and baking and couldn't see the meat thermometer. So I leaned in and grilled my face a bit. I still look a bit like John Marston. Working overnights years ago. Had gotten home and threw a TV dinner in the oven. Sat down with a bong and was watching a movie. Couple hours later I'm still sitting there watching TV and I think, man, I'm hungry. I should make myself or OMG my food. Luckily there was no fire and the smoke wasn't bad until I opened the oven. The tray was shriveled and everything was little black chunks of coal. I didn't injure myself that time, but just another dumber thing I've done in a long line of dumbassery. Ran full speed into a pole balls first. It wasn't easy explaining it to my mom. I was playing catch in a park. Had my eye on the ball and ran full tilt into a tree. There was bark under my skin. But being a 12-stroke 13-year-old, I pulled it out and kept playing. I destroyed my back putting on socks one morning. I couldn't move without spasms for over a week. To be fair, I had done a lot of snow blowing and shoveling in the prior days, but the socks were the last straw for my back. Apparently, did the same thing. To also be fair to myself, I had climbed a 20-foot tree the day before to set up patio lights and then threw my back out pulling up compression socks the next day. But I had to call out of my job in the ER because I couldn't put my shoes on. Told my manager that too. I'm standing here fully ready to go to work. But I can't put my shoes on and no one else is home. She said, maybe I'll just mark you out. I fell about 15 feet off a balcony while in university and trying to hit on a girl. Was very drunk and didn't realize how thin the railing was. Got hay. Out and over I go. Got my arm caught in the bars on the way down. Messed up my shoulder. And landed on my hands and face. Broke or sprained all of my fingers. Not a good night for this guy. Not me. But a friend of mine is the champion of hurting yourself in stupid ways. Broke his finger trying to pick up a stationary basketball, broke his toe walking down a flight of stairs, got a concussion playing dodgeball, had to take a couple days off school because he drank something really spicy. He was paid $20 to drink it. His parents found out. Took away the $20. And then made him write a book report on a book with a title that was basically How Not to Screw Up Your Life. A few months ago I was squatting at the gym and somehow managed to crack a rib in the process. For the life of me I'm not sure how I managed that. Bit too much stress at slightly the wrong angle. Or maybe you'd smacked it on something else and weakened it earlier without realizing it. Ribs are surprisingly easy to fracture. Depends on what you mean by stupidest. If we're looking at an injury resulting from doing something stupid, then there was the time I got a corneal ulcer because I wore contacts at work. We were sandblasting. I knew it was stupid before I did it. But have you ever tried the overglasses safety glasses? They're a pain in the ass, and the bridge of the nose. And behind the ears. I had to sit in a pitch black room for days. Even the light from the TV on the dimmest setting was excruciating, dropping liquid fire into my eye at regular intervals. If we're going for how the FCK did that even happen? Stupid. I once sneezed and, I'm pretty sure, pulled a muscle in my neck. No idea how it happened. But it happened and it hurt like a bitch. Jerked it too hard. I refuse to elaborate. So my son wanted me to open his ice cream bar. You know, the good humor ones on the stick. I was standing next to the kitchen table. I dropped the ice cream and when I moved my hands down to catch it I hit the top corner of the chair with my wrist. Broke 2 bones in my wrist and spent weeks in a cast. I caught the ice cream though. I've dropped my phone straight onto my face while texting in bed. I broke my toe by turning around and stubbing it on a wall. Ditto. Broke my toe kicking a door frame though. Accidental was doing the Jean wiggle. However, with the sheer force of the kick out I also split my toe open, needing it to be cleaned from paint shavings and stitches. Busted my nutsack on a mechanical bull at the Saddle Ranch in Los Angeles while in college. Right when I signed the waiver I said, "What's the worst that could happen?" I found out. Must have slammed my nuts into the saddle while doing it but didn't notice. Went to the bathroom later and while in line noticed my legs felt sticky. I put a hand down my pants and when I pulled my hand out it was covered in blood. My buddy asked what that was. I told him. Then said watch. Clean hand. Bloody hand. While putting my other hand down and up to show the blood. Went into stall. Blood all over both legs. Put some TP down there and went back to having a good time at the bar. At the end of the night. Went to the hospital and got 8 stitches on my nutsack. Was a pretty fun night. I put 2 mattresses down on my stairs to turn into a slide. There was a radiator at the bottom of the stair which I failed to cover with a blanket or put a pillow in front of it because I was a stupid child. I slid down the stair a good few times getting more confident with each turn. The last time I slid down it I went a bit too fast and my foot ended up going up in the air. My foot hit the radiator and I ended up with 3 broken toes and a trip to the hospital. I was working for an IT company installing medical software for GPs. I was working in a surgery and the doctor's stethoscope was on the table. I put it on and started messing. I needed to fart so I farted in the stethoscope. Perforated my eardrum. Not me but my brother. Him and his friend were playing FIFA and both are very competitive. It got to the 89th minute and the score was 1-1. My brother scored a last minute winner and jumped up to celebrate. He landed awkwardly and ended up snapping his ankle. It's still the only time I've witnessed someone injure themselves whilst playing a computer game. I was maybe 10 and pulling weeds with a thing that looked like a forked screwdriver. Basically you'd shove it in the root and pull up. One especially pesky weed wouldn't let go so I pulled upwards with all my little might. It let go and I stabbed myself in the face right beside my eyeball. Luckily it just missed my eye had a decent gash. I was studying in an awkward position on my stomach for an hour or 2. And I strained my lower back to the point where it was extremely uncomfortable unless it was in a certain position. That was fun telling my coach the next day I couldn't do any exercises. I sneezed and dislocated a shoulder. I've never really lived that one down. I also dislocated a shoulder getting overly competitive in a sack race. And I've also dislocated a shoulder just in my sleep. Recurring injuries are BTCH and, unfortunately, shoulders are a lot like Pringles. Once you pop you just can't stop. At 49 years old, I decided to go snow tubing with the kids. It was really icy. I hit a bump and flew off, ended up with a fractured fibula. 3 fractures in my ankle. 2 fractures in my foot. A torn meniscus. And nerve damage in my lower leg and foot. 3 surgeries. 12 screws and a plate in my leg. And 8 months off work. Good times. I was late for work. Rushing around and getting changed. I was pulling my socks on whilst standing up, because I'm a moron and thought that would be faster. Lost my balance. Hopped a couple of times before falling into the nearest wall. I had to explain this to a doctor and a nurse while they popped my dislocated shoulder back in place. I was injected with 2 large syringes full of heavy duty detergent while drunk and unconscious on the floor. Intramuscular. Not intravenously. He whacked the needles through my jeans and emptied them into my leg. I didn't know anything was wrong until the next day when I woke up and couldn't walk and started puking all over myself. I let a schizophrenic guy sleep on my couch while he was in a bad place. I nearly died of liver, kidney and heart failure and I nearly lost my leg. Spent just under 4 months in hospital and it took a year to regain the ability to walk. It was a bad time. I stabbed an X-Acto knife blade all the way into my palm while opening a new pair of boxing gloves. I knew right away what I did. The worst part was having to clean up the obscene amounts of blood I got all over the place. My dad was bowling once. On his backswing. The ball slipped out of his grip. Happens to everyone who bowls regularly. Instead of letting it fall, he whipped around and tried to catch it. Instead, He got a broken finger as the 16-pound ball came smashing down on his hand. I was playing hide and seek with my then 7-year-old niece. She's 8 now, so it wasn't that long ago. But still, and she hid under me stepdad's desk and there's a hole in the front of it. So I decided to slide on the carpet. But only afterwards did I realize that there was a carpet that's nailed down. So in short, it slit my knee open a couple inches and I still have the scar, which was obviously reduced. In 4th grade I was running to line up from recess and rolled my ankle. Ended up fracturing it. More recently I was trying to separate frozen sausage patties with a butter knife and ended up slicing my hand. Also not long ago I was wearing flared pants and I got up and started running in the house and somehow managed to get my foot caught in my pants and just wiped out. I probably have a dozen more, but I think those are my stupidest. Edit. Also when I was like 8 I was running and tripped over a water hose and busted my chin open and had to get stitches. Bought a knife at the PX when deployed. Because my other one was getting super dull. Couldn't open the package it was in with my knife. Went to go get a pair of scissors from someone who had one. Plopped down on my cot. And sliced my hand open on the dull blade I left open on the cot. When I was 8 I used the elastic and hook from a trampoline as a grappling hook and rope to climb a fence. As soon as I pulled on it, it shot off the fence and the hook embedded itself nicely in my head. Lots of bleeding and screaming followed by a trip to A&E. Pulling my sock off. I used one finger on a tight thick winter wool sock. Dislocated my thumb because it was too much pressure. Hurt like hell and I popped it back myself. Now I sit down and grab at heel and toe with both hands when taking a sock off. Also walked into a clear store door when I was 6 and knocked myself out. Woke up in the store with my mom holding me and the storekeeper bringing a cloth with ice water on it. When I was an early teen, I wanted to see how my butt looked in new jeans. Unfortunately, the only mirror I had was the vanity in my bathroom. So I stood on the lip of the toilet opposite the mirror to see how they fit. I immediately twisted my ankle, fell off the toilet, and busted my head on the door. I had to go to the ER because I thought I broke my ankle. The doctor and nurses couldn't stop laughing. The doctor wrote me a prescription for a full-length mirror. You know the big pseudo-rectangular holes they have at some car washes? So when I was around 13 I was running around for some reason. That too when it was totally dark. And all of a sudden the ground under me vanished and I fell down the hole. I came back up alright and I couldn't feel any injuries on me. About 10 minutes later when we were finally back at a place where we could see, did my friend realize that my eye had swollen to the size of an egg and was bluish. I never felt any pain though. It was just ugly and embarrassing. I got to skip school for a week, so that's a win I guess. TLDR. Fell down a hole and got a swollen eye. Still didn't hurt. My eyes are Superman. I was angry and tried to lighten up by goofing off. Goofing off included running with one of the large trash cans you leave on the side of the street. The lid was open. I stepped on the lid while running since I was pushing it at an angle. Broke my nose while my glasses cut my cheek hard enough that I still have a small scar. When I was 14 or 15 I was so lazy and disinterested in my hygiene that I let my toenails get too long. Not curling in on themselves or anything, but long enough that I once got up to take a step and sliced the inside of my left ankle with my right big toenail. Dot. And then sliced my right ankle with the left one on the very next step. Not serious one, but could easily have left me blind. Shot some piece of metal with my air rifle without safety glasses and a piece of lead hit me in the eye. Nowhere serious and it was a very small piece, but my vision was fine so I didn't go to a doctor. But I have a small brown spot in the eye now. I was shooting all kinds of stuff to see the penetrative power. I got so angry at Monster Hunter World I slapped my door open, which dislocated my arm from its socket. It popped back in after a moment. But this weird clicking and friction hasn't gone away since. Definitely realized I don't need to be playing anything that does that to me. I was really drunk at a party. Saw a friend I hadn't seen in a while. And ran to give her a hug. Picked her up and fell backwards. Braced my fall with my arm, which landed on a curb and broke it. I was so drunk, the cocaine probably contributed. 2. That I didn't think it was broken. And the next few days it didn't feel that bad. A week later it started bruising pretty badly and I finally went to the ER. Where they did an x-ray and found I had a fracture. Went into surgery later that day and now I have a metal plate in my arm. Sleep deprivation, depression, anxiety was at its peak in my early 20s. After staying up all night at the computer, I thought it would be funny to wrap parcel tape all around my arm to the computer chair's arm. When I got bored of being stuck there, I got my flick knife from the drawer and starting to slice the tape. You're probably thinking, oh god. Now that's a recipe for a good old arm slash. But no. No. What happened was the knife got stuck over a thick part of the tape. I leaned in for maximum concentration. The knife jerked out of the tape and stabbed me right in the philtrum, the groove between your nose and upper lip. Scars still there 10 years later.